Okay, I think we can begin. So hey everyone, welcome to our server owner panel. So today we have four amazing speakers who are also server owners or community managers of their respective servers. So I want to start by having you guys introduce yourself. So I think what you can share is maybe share what you currently do. Are you a student? Or what kind of job you have right now, and what server you represent. And as a fun fact, feel free to share your favorite game. But let's start with Sky.
Hello, my name is Skylar. I'm 19 years old, I'm an artist, and I'm a nursing student. I read a lot in my free time, and I create content for various different brands and games. My favorite game is Animal Crossing.
Thank you, Sky. I also really like Animal Crossing. Okay. Next let's have Misa share about herself.
Hi everyone. I'm Misa. I am a psychology student and waiting to do my honors and master's year. I represent Miso Pop, a gaming and hangout community. And also my favorite game is Valorant and Animal Crossing.
Yay, Animal Crossing. Okay, next, Litochee, do you want to share about yourself?
Hello, my name is Tyler. I'm currently the community specialist for Corsair. I take care of Discord and Reddit, but I'm also the developer of a bot called the Maribot, and my favorite game is Valorant as well. Sorry, no Animal
Okay.
Crossing this time.
Okay, Mo, do you want to share with us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Mo. I'm 24 from the UK. I'm a full stack web developer for a job, and then I spend most of my time moderating and managing the programmers Hangout, but I also do a bit of woodwork as a hobby. My favorite game, I want to say Minecraft, but I think that's too cliche, so I'll go with City Skylines.
Okay, thanks, Mo. Okay, so we're gonna hop into a couple of moderated questions, and then we will go into the open Q&A. For the open Q&A, you can type all of your questions in your in the questions thread that we linked in announcements. Okay, so we're gonna start off with, can you tell us about how your community came about? Let's start with Mo again.
Sure. So the original owner and creator wasn't looked around on Discord and just wasn't impressed with like what programming communities are out there. So he made his own in, I think it's 2016. I joined a year later in 2017 and just worked my way up. And then these days I'm run the server as kind of a collective of admins that just make decisions together, which works quite well.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. Misa, do you want to share about how Miso Pop came about?
Yeah, so I was originally moderating for other servers, like other gaming servers for Animal Crossing as well. I think that was right around the time where the pandemic started. I just gained a lot of experience there from how servers work and how to moderate behaviors in other servers. So that was when I was inspired to start my own Animal Crossing server and community. And also, I guess like during that time, everyone was quarantined, so I had a lot more free time to hang out on Discord, and that's how I created the server.
Thanks, Misa. Tyler, I know yours is a little bit of a different situation, but feel free to share how it came about.
Well, for ours, it was already made before me, and kind of like because it's due to work. They just create a project for it, and usually they'll hand it out to like interns, or anyone who's actually working at Corsair currently. So, that's kind of how the server came about during this time. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, finally, would you like to share with us how your community came about, Sky?
Sure. At the time when I made my server, I didn't really have anyone. I had a hard time making friends, and I felt like something was missing. I had one person, and I would talk to them every day. I would tell them I felt like something was missing. And I told them I was considering making a server, and they encouraged me to do it. At first, I wasn't sure what theme I wanted to go for, or like what crowd of people I wanted to target, but slowly but surely it became a mental health community because I wanted to offer a place where people could speak freely without worrying about what people think about them, because I couldn't find that. I didn't want anyone else to experience the type of loneliness like I did, and I believe everyone should have a warm and comforting place to go to when things are hard. So that's how my community slowly started, but now it's a social server.
Yeah, thank you, Sky. That's a very enlightening story. Okay, I'm gonna pass this back to you, Sky, again in a second. But I wanted to ask, for you, what's the toughest part of being a server owner?
Sorry. You get taken advantage of a lot. Sometimes it feels like people forget that you're a person and that owning a community takes a lot of energy and time and effort and money, and you can't just hire a staff team and then walk away and expect your team to like take care of it all. But at the same time, you're only one person, and sometimes you find people like making excuses or avoiding the things that they volunteered to do, and it gets really demotivating. But what keeps me coming back and consistent and working hard is the community itself and the feedback I get.
Thank you, Sky. That's a very, very honest answer, and I can see how that can be really, really challenging. Okay, Mo, do you want to share with us what's the toughest part of managing a server?
I think that there's many hard parts, but I think the few of the main ones are dealing with like tricky people, a lot of sensitive topics that come up. Maybe someone's not feeling too great, and you have to kind of carefully handle that without making things worse. I think one of the biggest problems and issues is you get a lot of suggestions and get a lot of suggestions thrown at you, and you just kind of have to figure out which ones to ignore and which ones to actually listen and implement in the best interests of your server.
Yeah, of course. Filtering feedback is always important, and that can be challenging. Okay, Tyler, do you want to share with us like what is the hardest part of being a server owner or a manager of a server?
Yep. So for me, like I think the hardest part really is like keeping everything flowing, making sure that like you're on top of everything. Events have plans, and just making sure moderators are around, keeping the server active, just kind of like everything in my opinion. And I think it's just like it's definitely challenging. It's a lot of work, but once you kind of like get there, you're like, yeah, like this is a lot of fun, but it takes a little bit to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it is a consistent work. It's something that you don't just take a break on. It's not something you can take a vacation on. Your community is always running, so it's always very difficult. Um, okay, Misa, do you want to share your thoughts about this question?
Yeah, actually, I kind of really agree with what Sky said. It's really hard to um, just be the only person that's there, and really sometimes people really take you for granted and that you're the sole owner of the server. And also, I feel like professionalism is really difficult as well. Sometimes I feel like you need to really find a balance between having fun and being professional. Uh, Also, I guess you have to be you have to play a part in every part of the survey, whether it's uh doing like moderating or events, you have a part in all of that. And so sometimes I guess it leads to burnout from doing so much work for your server, and also making sure that your staff members are around even when you aren't. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Misa. Okay, we're gonna hop into the next question. So the next question is, what are some methods you've tried to boost your members' engagement in your server? What works well and what doesn't work well in your community? Let's start with Litochee.
So one thing that we did try and worked really well, this is kind of like it's harder to do with smaller servers, especially if you can't give out prizes or anything. But basically, we added a level bot to the Corsair server, and then depending on what tier you got, we were able to hand out swag. Like it could be like lanyards and stuff like that. But like I said, it's definitely not as easy to do that for like if you're starting a server or anything like that. But it's definitely one of the kind of like fun things that you can do. Um, and you always get like those people who are just want to spam and just like level up as fast as you can. And yeah, you definitely have to make sure that that doesn't happen that much as well. But yeah, that's one thing that we did on the Corsair server.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, let's go back to Misa. What are some methods you've tried to boost your members' engagement, and what works well and what doesn't?
I think I've probably tried everything really. My server is the smallest here, and I really done like giveaways using my own money. I've done promotion on social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter. And I think what worked the best for me was having affiliations with other similar servers, like other Animal Crossing or gaming servers, and also um I think listing sites just like TalkGG also kind of worked for me as well. Yep, that's all.
Thanks, Misa. Okay, Sky, I'm gonna pass it to you for this.
Sure. I've tried giveaways, events, invite rewards, a chat revival ping. I've tried pretty much anything that you can think of. And I find that events and chat revivals work the best since you can only pay so much money for giveaways for a temporary outcome. And, people like Nitro and stuff, but like it only keeps them around for a certain extent. And you can't keep paying money for certain people to stay, but not really. And what also helps is having a good bond between the community and your staff team. I find that an active and enthusiastic staff team keeps an active server.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, finally, Mo, do you have anything to add about this?
Yeah, so I mean, we've paid for advertising on Discord listing servers before. It's a huge help in the start, just to get your name kind of out there. We've got a website, a subreddit, a listing on TopGG, and you just got to kind of push your name out there as much as you can in the start, but without being too pushy.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Mo. Okay. So the next question I have is a little bit about the rules in your server. So when you define the rules of your server, how do you kind of go about writing these set of rules, and what reflects your server's values? And how do you find the balance in sharing guidelines internally, like for your staff team versus externally for your members? I know this is a long question, so feel free to let me know if you want me to repeat it. Let's start with Misa.
Well, the most important to me was laying down, I guess, any general common sense rules, no controversial topics or politics, whatever. And I think basic politeness and manners from members is a really important part for me. I just want basic respect among friends. And my server was meant to be a server for anyone above 13. So another rule was just no inappropriate content. We don't want anyone, the general consensus that we don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable in the server. And in general, for internal guidelines for staff, staff members have to follow the same set of rules. And on top of that, I really push them to be the best role model that they can be so that we can uphold the server's image and make members feel more welcome. I also trust them to have good judgment when it comes to giving out warnings or punishments, even if I'm not around to see what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Misa. That's very, very in depth. Okay. Tyler, do you wanna weigh in about this question?
Oh, of course. So for our server, we kind of looked at like what is it about, who is the age group that it's kind of like targeted to, and from there we kind of like define the rules where it's like, like, okay, how strict do we want to be, but how much do we want to let loose? So finding a good balance between the two is probably one of the hardest things to do. At one point we went too strict, and a lot of people hated it. And so like it was one of those things where it's like you have to make sure that your community is happy with it as well. And then also for the sharing it externally to internally. So usually we have the same rule sets for the moderators as well, but they are held to, I guess, like more of a higher standard. As Misa said, like a role model basically for everyone else within the server.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Mo, do you want to share about what you think about this?
Sure. I mean, when you define rules for your server, you've got to pick a value that you want your server to stick to the whole time. I think you've got to know which direction you want your server to be in. You have to kind of evolve those rules over time. But as long as you keep that same core value, it's fine. Like I think adapting the rules is supposed to happen. When we change the rules, we discuss it with a pretty large staff team that's just got a wide variety of all different types of people, which I think it helps make a balance of you're not going to make everyone happy, but it's fair.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna pass it to Sky now, for you to share your thoughts about this.
Sure. I base my rules off of what I would look for as a casual member of any server. I wanted positive and engaging conversations and a spot where I wouldn't become uncomfortable from the things that people were talking about around me. I kept in mind what would cause me to leave servers and why it made me leave. So, like, if people were talking about politics or something unsettling, it would probably make me leave the server and go look for another one. And I base my rules off of my values because my server's rules reflect my values as a person. My guidelines for my staff team aren't too different from the set of values I present to my community. I expect them to follow the same set of rules, etc. And I mostly just make sure they know how to handle like bad situations and what I expect from them and how I expect them to like present themselves to my community. I didn't want to write something like too overwhelming, but also something that lacks detail and is too vague. I think it's really hard to reach a good balance between too much and not enough, and I still find myself looking for that balance every now and then.
Thank you, Sky. Okay, I'm gonna ask the next question. So, Sky, I'm really curious about this. So, as your server has grown, how have you recruited moderators, and what kind of challenges did this recruitment process present? What do you usually look for when, recruiting staff?
Well, first I created a form with like basic questions, your name, your time zone, etc. And then I put some questions based on like experience and then personal questions to get to know the person better. I look for genuine people more than I look for previous experience because I find that you could teach a good and truthful person the way things work, whereas you can't change somebody who doesn't have good intentions. So at first I'd get like a lot of crappy applications or like people who didn't really care. Or sometimes I would get applications where someone really tried, but when I read them, it felt like there was no emotion or enthusiasm in those responses. It felt very robotic and I wasn't getting like a feel of how the person was. And it was hard. Like when I was accepting applicants, it was hard to separate personal feelings from my professional feelings at first because you can have somebody that you care about apply to become a staff member and there's obviously some bias there in the first place, but they could do a really bad job on their application or not know what they're talking about, and I find that it's completely not fair to those who deserve the spot but then have it taken by somebody who just wants into your staff team to talk to you more. So I try to keep bias away even if the person is my friend and they're applying or like I really care about them, and I look for good people rather than experience.
Yeah, thank you, Sky. I think that's really, really important when you're looking for staff. Okay, Mo, do you want to weigh in on how you recruit mods and staff?
Sure, yeah. So we always have applications open, but we kind of go through in phases. We go in like rounds of onboarding people. We do restrict those applications to what we call active users, which are just people that have been around for, they've been around for a week, they've been chatting, talking. I think at that point you kind of know them as a person, not just from their moderator application. So you can get a good feel as to like how they interact with people, how they respond to different challenges they might come up with. I think it's also a good idea to not necessarily just select people that you agree with, because sometimes you need that person to disagree with you because you're not always correct. Yeah, I think the you need to get a variety of people and just let them roll in.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. Tyler, do you want to share how you guys recruit staff?
Yep. So basically, a lot of times we look at our members who are really active. We do open up moderator applications sometimes, but a lot of the times we complete our recruiting through finding like really active members that really love the community, that like to be a part of it, and kind of ask them if they would like to join in as a moderator on the team. And then obviously they go through like an onboarding process, and all that, kind of like quote unquote training. But yeah, like honestly, we find that finding members within the community that are outstanding is always a really good way to do it.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of a lot of large servers doing that. Okay, Misa, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, so we'll do the usual application forms for anyone who wants to become a moderator in the server. And also after that, if they're shortlisted, we used to do this short trial where we would see how applicants respond under difficult situations, like how they would handle a member that's being difficult, for example. So far, I haven't had any problems with this recruitment process. And usually, if they don't do as well as expected, we always allow them to reapply in the future. And I tend to look for slightly older moderators just because it's easier for me to communicate and kind of be on the same level as them. I also tend to observe how members behave in the server, especially the more active ones. So that definitely gives me an idea of how they'll be like as a staff member as well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, okay, so my next question is, how do you typically measure the analytics of your server? What do you think is the secret ingredient to your server's growth? Tyler, do you wanna start us off?
Sure. So, for analytics, we use actually a bot called StatBot. So in that we are able to kind of like view like how many messages that are sent like weekly, monthly, daily, that kind of thing. I find the Discord analytics that are within Discord itself, they're kind of delayed by, I think it's like 1 or 2 weeks. I'm not 100% sure on what it is. So if you're looking for something like, hey, like how did this event go or anything like that, you're not able to pull those statistics until later on in the month. So it's kind of like, we need to find out like right away. So highly recommend that for any stats. As for getting people to join, we do a lot of giveaways and post on our other socials, so it's a little bit easier for us to kind of like, hey, come check out the Corsair Discord, because we have like so many social channels to utilize and be able to bring people in from.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Okay, Misa, how do you typically measure analytics in your server, and what is the secret ingredient to your server's growth?
I also use StatBot actually, but over time, I actually stopped looking at the analytics of my server. I think this is a more personal thing because I used to always look at how my server is growing, but sometimes I feel like it puts me down. For example, this month my server doesn't have that many people joining or being active. I think I get a bit unmotivated to keep the server around, So what I'm working on is actually focusing on the server itself, like how I can improve it and listening to suggestions from my members. And for server's growth, I feel like the partnerships and also interacting with people outside of your server will really help because it kind of expands your circle. And making sure my moderators keep the members engaged in the server is really important because it makes them feel comfortable and they'll be more likely to stay.
Yeah, for sure. I think whilst analytics is helpful, sometimes it can also be bad as well when you're looking too much into it. It's only one part of your server. Then again, so okay. Sky, do you want to share how you typically do this?
I'm really with Misa on this one. I try to not look at my server insights too much because it really discourages me. Sometimes we're not able to like meet the bar and it gets really demotivating, but I try to not pay attention to that, and I find that staff interaction between your community is very important. It's also really important for you as a community owner to stay engaged with your community so you know what your audience is like and what to expect from new groups of people that come by. If you're out of touch with your community as a server owner, then there can be like consequences from it. People will leave because they feel like you don't care, or they're just in any other server where owners are just making it for, I don't know, like for fun, I guess.
Okay. Finally, Mo, do you want to share your thoughts about this?
Sure, yeah. We don't really use Discord Insights. I mean, it's helpful to see there and look if you want, but it's I agree with Misa and Sky there. They're just kind of distracting for the most part. But I think the main parts with server growth aren't so much who's running the server. It's kind of the community that are in the server. You know, we've got like hundreds or thousands of people who just help complete strangers on a daily basis. They donate portions of their time for free, and those people, the community, are the ones that make the server a good server. I always say, like a little metaphor is that owners and admins are just there to steer the ship and keep it on course, but the community are the ship.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful metaphor. I do think that the community is the heart of it, and so sometimes analytics aren't the most helpful. Okay, I now have some specific questions for each of you guys. So I'm gonna ask one question for each of you guys, and then we're gonna be opening it to the open Q&A in the thread. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the thread. Okay, Mo, this is a question for you. Mo, it's trivial for people to often find that programming communities are very harsh and unhelpful. How do you find a good balance between spoon feeding new developers versus throwing developers to Google to figure it out themselves? How does this affect moderations in your service?
Sure, yeah. So I have an issue with Stack Overflow for the exact reason there. You know, it's just very dehumanizing and a place that makes you afraid to ask a question. We try to avoid blatant spoon feeding, but it's a tricky problem to solve, really. When someone joins, posts a question, and says "help," you can tell they've not really put a huge amount of effort in. But if someone joins and says, you know, I've tried this. This is what's happening. How can I solve this? That it kind of, you can tell they've put a bit more effort in, and they just need a bit of a nudge. So I think that it's a tricky balance you've got to find there. In terms of effective moderation, sometimes people that just want help can get quite snappy and feel a bit perhaps entitled. It can quickly turn into like arguments and stuff. So staff need to be on top of it to help diffuse when that does happen.
Thank you for the very thoughtful answer. Okay. This is a question for you, Sky. So I know that Sky was first and foremost a mental health server in the past, and over time it has sort of evolved to a social community. But how is it moderating a mental health community versus a more sociable community? What kind of challenges did you face?
Keeping track of a mental health community was really tough. It could become very hard sometimes. It was really rewarding, but it can get extremely exhausting and draining because if you're too soft, it can be taken as an insult. If you're too blunt, it can also be taken as an insult. And the goal is to help, but sometimes you just can't help people who don't really want the help. Sure, I could help a bunch of people with their mental health struggles, but it was hurting my staff team to a certain extent. It would tire them out. They would question their judgment because they don't want to say the wrong thing and ruin the reputation of the team and the server. It was stressful and rewarding, but at the end of the day, I'm just a person. I'm not a professional, and as much as I want to help people, I can't offer professional services because I just don't I'm a kid, I was a kid at the time. I don't have the experience that professionals do. And it's a lot easier to maintain a social community because you have the opportunity to attract multiple different types of crowds, whereas mental health alone, you can actually drive certain people away from the soft and sugary nature of a mental health server.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing, Sky. Okay. This is a question for you, Tyler. So, Tyler, I know you are the community specialist of a very gaming adjacent company, and the way Corsair has to kind of brand and structure its community is very, very different from like a typical like a community server. So, how do you do this so successfully?
So internally, we have our own brand guidelines that we do have to follow. A lot of the times, it's a lot of posts that are kind of like, "Hey, like, where can we post these things?" And a lot of times it's like, "Okay, like we can post this on Twitter, Instagram, Discord as well." So kind of like it falls into line with that, where we have a lot of our like images created, and honestly, sorry, they have to follow their own kind of like brand guidelines. So it's definitely very different, but it's interesting to see that from a different perspective of like, hey, we can kind of like do anything we want versus we have to make sure that we follow, brand guidelines that we have internally, as well as making sure that the community is happy to like with everything that we're doing. And we can't just be like, hey, like we're gonna shill. It has to be more about community versus, hey, we're selling products, right? So we try to keep it like, a tight knit community where we want everyone to be inclusive, and it's just like a fun place to be at, right?
Thank you. Okay, finally, I have a question for you, Misa. So, Misa, your server is an adorable community relating to several games such as Animal Crossing, Genshin, etc. As a community that's mostly for socializing, it can be very difficult to grow an active and healthy community. How are you able to create such a unique and a tight knit server?
Um, I think that the most important thing for me was creating a good atmosphere as the owner of the server. Um, Many people look at server owners as someone who just has the title and the ownership of the community. So during the first few months when I created Miso Pop, I welcome all my members like almost individually. And I also tried to start conversations with them in chat so that they could form a relationship with me and also the staff that worked for me at that time. I believe that was the real key to creating such a tight knit community because slowly everyone was becoming friends with each other, even if they were no longer playing the game that was in my server. Um, as Animal Crossing has kind of died down a little over the years, people still stay because that's where the server is where they made such good friends. Yeah.
Thank you, Misa. Okay, we're gonna hop into the questions shared in the thread. So if you have any other questions, feel free to just pop in the thread. So the first question we have is from the dev. What is your best tips to keep a server alive and fun to be at? So you don't have to each answer this question. So feel free to jump in if you have an answer to this question.
I'll
Nothing.
jump in, I suppose. I guess
Thank you.
I guess one way to make it fun is you need to have like extracurricular things. So say if you're focused on, for example, we're focused on programming, don't just have programming. Have like a Minecraft server or something. Just something that lets people relax outside of their general purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anyone else want to share about this?
Oh yeah, I can definitely add to that.
Yeah.
Having planned events that are kind of like weekly, bi-weekly, or even monthly is definitely a good way to get your community involved in just events that they want to actually participate in. Like if they know that there's going to be an event that's going to be happening on Tuesday or something, then they know like, hey, like I got to be around for Tuesday, and they'll definitely be joining in on that day.
Oh yeah, recurring and scheduled events are a very, very good idea. Okay. Misa, Sky, do you have anything else to add about this?
Nope, not really.
No, but thank you.
Okay. So the next question we have from Ken Kaneki is, how can you grow a server if you have no money or don't have anything to give away? Um, very, very interesting question. And anyone want to weigh in on this?
Sure. Originally, I personally didn't start with money because obviously I didn't have a job and I didn't know how to start a server, but I found that like partnerships and inviting like your friends and just people that you know to your community and keeping your engagement with your community is what will really help it grow. I wouldn't so much try to like pump ads into your server because they only work so much, and sometimes like you can buy advertisements from people who are not reliable, and all the members that you gain you'll just eventually lose, and it's a bunch of lost money. So I would just focus on like events, community engagement, and having a good staff team.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone want to add about this?
I can kind of add to this as well. So basically, if you're doing giveaways and stuff like that, a lot of times people just join in for the giveaways and don't actually contribute much to the community other than kind of like waiting for the giveaways. So in doing that, it kind of like puts you in a weird position where it's like, okay, like we may have all these members, but only a few amount of them will kind of like show up to events that are run and stuff like that. But so giveaways are good, but it's also misleading in a certain way if you run events with giveaways. But if you do events with no giveaways, it's one of those things where it's like you actually see the people who enjoy the server and want to kind of like come in and make friends, do a lot of fun things, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Tyler. Anyone want to add to add to this a bit more? Or okay, I'm gonna move into the next question. So this question is from sorry if I say your name wrong, but Quentin, I think. How do you typically keep your voice channels active?
We actually have fairly inactive voice channels. I don't know if that's like a programming thing where people are shy or something, but I think when you're trying to keep it active, it's maybe has more of a downside because it feels more unnatural. You just got to kind of, if people want to use a voice chat, they can, but there's no pressure to use it.
Yeah, that's completely valid. Any other thoughts on this?
I find it very hard to get people to join voice calls, especially when I'm like hosting events. Not everyone wants to like join a voice call with, let's say, like 20 other people because they're shy or like they may have like social anxiety or something. But I try not to focus on that like voice activity. so much as I do like lounge and chat activity, because people are more likely to type in a chat than they are to show up in a voice channel and speak.
Yeah, for sure. That's completely valid. Any anything else you'd like to add?
One thing I can add is a lot of times having people in the voice chat, like having moderators chilling in voice chats as well, playing games, just streaming it, is a good way to get people in there as well, because people are interested. People are curious people, so they might just pop in and be like, hello, or they might lurk, just kind of like watch a stream, that kind of thing. But if you have moderators or any staff kind of like just in there, a lot of times people will just join.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. So I think Geeky and Brian asked this question, but how do you avoid fatigue and burnout from being a server owner? Do you ever lose motivation? Anyone want to weigh in on this question?
I think it's pretty normal to feel demotivated sometimes. It just kind of comes with the territory. But I think one way to manage that and kind of for your mental health as well is just take breaks. Just your server's going to manage without you. You don't have to be there. Just as long as you've got a staff team there, just have a day off, have a week off. It'll be there when you get back.
Yeah, I agree.
I think also having a healthy work-balance lifestyle is also really good. So don't spend like 24/7 on Discord. Get away from the computer for a while. Play some games. You can even do some cooking or like anything like that. Drinking coffee in the morning, that kind of stuff. Those relaxation breaks are kind of like what helps me keep motivated as well.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. So from Quinten again. Have you ever tried to get partnered with Discord? Why or why didn't you get it? I know Tyler's server is partnered, so maybe not the most applicable here. But have the others gotten like or tried to get partnered?
Yeah, we were partnered probably like 3 or 4 years ago, but they changed the partnership terms and conditions or something, and we just revoked it because we didn't kind of feel like that would fit our server. But since then, they've seems to have changed the terms and conditions, so we're trying to get back in, but they've got this like you have to meet this 20% threshold to get partnerships these days, which seems a bit of a high bar on some servers. But we're at that stage now.
Yeah. I think that's like the server retention. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
as a partner, like a partnered server owner, it's always like one of the most annoying statistics you have to meet. Okay, anyone else wanted to talk about partnering? Okay, I'm going to go to the next question. So this question is from TwistedCode. Running a large community must be very, very stressful. Was there ever a time where you felt like throwing in the towel? I'm assuming for this, it's like actually wanting to delete your server, or just kind of let it die, or something like that.
I suppose it's kind of similar to the other question. I think there's been times where you feel like just giving up, but I think having breaks again helps. Also, like just spicing up your server. Add a few new staff members that have different opinions. Add new events and stuff. Just make it different all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I think there were many occasions where I felt like, this is it. I'm just gonna delete this server and be done. But usually like what Mo said, I just took a break, just tell my staff members like, hey, you're not gonna see me for a while. I just like want to take a break from all this for a while, and then I'll come back a week later and I'll be more. I usually find myself way more motivated to do new stuff for my server. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Misa. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. So this question is from Kaneki. How can you grow your server if you don't have social media, or if you do have social media but promoting your server there doesn't seem to work? For example, for me, I created a Facebook group which has 4K members and it's Discord related, but when I advertise my server in my group, no one joins or seem to care. Why do people leave the server as soon as they join without giving the server a chance, or at least seeing what the server is about? Very, very interesting question here. Anyone wanna weigh in about this?
I can probably add some 2 cents to that. So advertising your server on a different platform, throwing out the link, sometimes you'll get like maybe like depending on how many people click it, like if 10 people click it, how many people are gonna stay, right? But usually you have to give an incentive for why they need to stay in the server. So if people don't find that really quickly, they leave usually. So incentive could be like anything where it's like, events, it could be giveaways, it could be just the people in the server or even the community itself. So you really got to find that to kind of like help out with your growth when advertising it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anyone else want to share about this? Okay, thank you. Okay, so from GameTime, what is the best way to advertise your server? Is it through a website specifically related to your server's theme, or TikTok, or Twitter? I feel like we already touched this several times, but um, feel free to go into a little bit deeper.
I think I don't think TikTok and Twitter is a great way to advertise, because you'll find a lot of people use TikTok but don't use Discord, and if you throw like a Discord invite out there, how many people are realistically going to click it? I think the best way is to advertise on like Top GG, where people are looking for a server to join, because you're filling their needs rather than just throwing a random server invite out there.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh yeah,
Another,
go ahead.
sorry, another thing, if you don't already have it active, just using Discord's discovery, you can add your server into that usually, and sometimes that'll bring people in as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. From Quinten, what's next for your community? What are your plans for the future?
We should know the answer to that one.
No answers.
I guess just keep things fresh and just keep things evolving.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just trying to think. Discord comes out with a lot of updates, so I guess finding new ways to kind of like incorporate that with your community is a I guess one of those things where it's like, hey, like, okay, how do we incorporate threads? How can we make it fun to use? That kind of thing, right? So I know like it's not just ending there. There's going to be a lot more things. So it's like, hey, like, how can we utilize what Discord gives us? So that's definitely for us for whatever we can do in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. From Gelbie or Gelbie, sorry if I'm butchering your name there. How hard is it to get active staff? I guess part of this could also be like, how do you keep your staff active?
I think a good way to kind of go about this is don't make people staff and then expect them to be active. You want them to be active first and then be made staff. And then, staff are just members of the server too, really. They just have added responsibilities. But in terms of keeping them as staff, we don't really mind. If people want to leave for a few weeks, they want to leave for a month, they just want to retire from staff completely, then, it's about the freedom to do that kind of helps, I guess, the mental health of the staff as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Breaks are very important as well, and I do think it's important to hire staff that are already active. Okay. So the next question I have here is quite interesting. So it's from Harry. In many servers, the staff get involved in server drama and avoid taking the appropriate actions until they end up losing their cool. How do you vet or find staff members who can handle drama properly?
So to add on to this, I'd probably say you'd want to look for the people who can separate their feelings in the first place, because they do have added responsibilities. uh Finding people that's one kind of like hard thing about finding people within the community to become moderators, is you notice that it would be harder for them to, to kind of like, hey, if someone does something and they usually talk to them a lot or they're their friends, there is a little bit of bias to it. So you have to determine who would be good at kind of like separating their feelings from what they should be doing. And I would say that's definitely a tough one. But finding staff members who can do that is definitely one of the best things that you can do.
Fantastic. Anyone want to add to this?
Yeah, I personally have a rule in my guidelines where it says absolutely no drama. If anyone is found like spreading rumors or like just saying stuff, we just demote them or we have a talk with them and explain to them like why it wouldn't be healthy for the server and our reputation. Like people will spread rumors, people will quit on you. You can't always please everyone, and it's really hard to find people who are mature enough to not start drama over like one little thing. And that's why in my applications I look for genuine and truthful people rather than experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Sky. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. So this question is a little bit bit heavy. So this is from Lemondrops. How do you and your staff team deal with sensitive topics like people talking about death, cancer, assault, etc.? Obviously, these people might be seeking for comfort or kind of mental health support, but these topics can also be very triggering for other people and make other members uncomfortable. How do you step in and kind of ask them to move the conversation elsewhere? Do you keep it there or do you move it to GMs, or how do you guys typically handle this?
So within Corsair, we actually kind of have a policy, well, not a rule basically saying like, hey, like let's not talk about anything triggering. But at the same time, is if someone does come in like that, we do have a backup plan. Usually we have a command where like we can send a message to the user and be like, hey there, like, if you need any help with anything, here's like a couple of websites, some resources and stuff like that. I know we've had to use it a couple times, but not too much lately, which is really nice to see. But we kind of have like the way we kind of like divert is like, we'll do it like nicely, but then also kind of like shift it to another topic at the same time, just so it doesn't feel like the user doesn't feel like they're just being ignored. But we try to include them in the new topic as well.
Yeah, fantastic answer, Tyler. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah. So I think sometimes you get the urge to like pull them into a mod mail and just have a chat with them, but I think sometimes that could come off a bit insensitive depending on which side of the topic they're coming from. So I usually just get people to ping me and I'll DM them and just go through and talk to them about, usually they just want someone to talk to and just let them understand from their point of view. And if you just have some like resources on hand and just get them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, amazing. Any other additional comments on this question?
Yeah, even though we used to be a mental health server, we still keep the resources that we use, and we still have like a little mental health section of the server, but it's not like focused around it. We have a venting channel, and usually we encourage those people to like move to that channel, or some of our staff members will reach out to that person individually and just see if they need anything. And we try to make bonds with like people that way, and we don't want people to just feel like they're ignored. So we encourage them to just either move to venting or talk to one of us.
Yeah, amazing, Sky. Okay. I'm gonna hop into the next question. So this one is from Estrella. So they were curious about what do you enjoy about managing your community and what makes you excited to continue to help it grow and flourish?
honestly, I'm gonna say the members. I've met a lot of really nice people just through any servers, really, and especially managing a server. It's really nice to see members and seeing them interact with everyone, sticking around, seeing who's active. It's one of those things where it's like, wow, like like we made this, we did this together, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Anyone want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, we get a lot of people that join our server wanting to learn how to program and they know nothing at all, and then a year later they drop a message saying, "Oh, I just wanted to say thanks. I got my first job as a software developer," and that's like it's just so heartwarming that like complete strangers on the internet have helped this person just get on with life and get a job and something they enjoy, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I'm gonna ask one more question before we start to wrap up. So, so this one is from Lemondrop. So they wanted to ask, what was your first "I did it" moment? The first moment where you truly felt overwhelmingly, proud of your server, and where you were like, okay, I made it, and you felt that like people really loved the community, etc. What was the cause to this situation? I think everyone could probably answer this question. Sky, do you want to start us off? Oh, sorry, Sky. Could you hear me?
Sorry, one of my parents just came home. I had to deal with that. You said advice, correct?
No, I was
Oh,
asking.
I'm sorry.
what,
I was totally zoned
I was
out.
asking, what was your big "I did it" moment where you truly felt overwhelmingly proud of your server, when you were glad you made it, that you genuinely felt that everyone loved your community, etc. And what was the cause to this?
Um, I wouldn't say when I hit like a certain member count, but when I found that more people than usual were talking in like our conversational channels, and I feel like when you see new members actively engaging with like longtime members, it's a really good feeling because we always want to make new people feel like welcome and stuff, and it's hard to get new people to talk. There was a point in my server where we would have like a ton of new members like talking and engaging and stuff, and you don't always get that. Like not everyone will come in and immediately start talking and interacting with like old time members or like your staff team. And I wouldn't say there was like a certain specific moment where I was like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. It's mostly just like good feelings whenever new members engage with your server.
Yeah, for sure. Misa, do you want to share about this?
Well, I guess my big "I did it" moment is right now. I mean, my server may not be really big, so having this opportunity is really something I appreciate a lot. And I guess a point where I felt really grateful for making my server was because originally it was an Animal Crossing server. It was just for that game only. And so um last year when I kind of announced that I'm not going to make I'm not going to continue having this server be a Animal Crossing server anymore. I'm going to transition it into something else, like include other games and make it more like a Hangout community. And actually all my members were super supportive and telling me that it's okay, even though you don't want to have Animal Crossing here anymore, we will still be here for you. I think that was really it was really heartwarming for me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Tyler?
Actually, one of the moments actually happened before I even had this server kind of like under my management. It's kind of like a little story, but basically, we one of the days I don't remember what happened or what triggered it, but basically a bunch of us hopped into a voice channel, and we all had different Microsoft products as our profile pictures. So like one of us was like Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, and like there was like 50 of us in this channel. And so we're just chilling and vibing, and we were just listening to Microsoft remixes on YouTube, and it was honestly one of the funniest things. Like someone was Bill Gates at one point. We even had a bunch of like the other staff members from within Corsair join in, and they were having a bunch of fun as well, and it was just an absolute blast.
Thanks for sharing.
No problem.
Okay, Mo, do you want to share your big I did it moment?
There's been like so many over the years, but I think one thing that kind of stands out to me is just the willingness of people wanting to help. You know, you put in server meta, you'll like to talk about a bot that you might want or need, and then the next day someone's made it, and you're like, whoa. And then it's just little things like that that just on, it's not just me running this community. The community are running the community.
Okay. So we're hitting 3 o'clock. So I'm gonna finish this off with one short question. So I just want to know, what's one last piece of advice for someone who might be a new server owner, or just your advice that you would give to yourself maybe when you first started creating a community, or something short and sweet. Let's start with let's go back to Mo. Why don't you start us off?
Sure. Yeah. I think the main thing with making a server that's a place you'd want to be is just make it a place you'd want to be. If you want a server that fits a specific niche, has certain rules, you make it that, and then people like-minded will join and enjoy themselves. You don't have to make it the biggest server ever. You don't have to make it the most members, the most chatters. Just make it a place people want to go, and you'll make a community of people that are happy to talk.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Tyler, do you want to share?
Yeah, so when you're first starting out, definitely don't look at the numbers. Try to grow as organically as you can, like getting a whole bunch of friends in there, finding other people to kind of like do things with, gaming or anything like that. Just kind of like getting your server out there is probably the biggest way to kind of like start it growing. But you also want stuff that'll keep people there and not just kind of like join and leave, that kind of thing, right? So definitely hosting events, giveaways, anything like that. Just kind of like pulling people in just to be able to see, hey, like this community is actually really cool. I want to stick around and maybe like play some games with them, like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Misa?
There's a lot of things I could say, but I feel like you, as the owner of the server, you really have to be there for the people that join. Even if I know it takes time, but you really have to invest that kind of time into engaging with members who check out your server, so that it's a higher chance that they will stay because you become friends with them. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Sky, do you want to end us up?
Yeah, of course. I would say keep your heart in the right place. It's hard to remember that just because you are the head of your staff team and a community leader, you deserve to be heard and valued as a person just like anybody else would.
Thank you. Okay, so that marks the end of our server owner panel. Thanks everyone for coming today. And have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you
Bye.
very much, Yara, for
Thank
inviting us.
you.
Thanks for hosting.